Okay, well, apologies for that brief interruption. I'll try and stitch this to the first clip, and I'm sure it'll just basically pop in as a immediate switch, so glitch. So it's not like it'll be a big delay. Um, but had a pretty productive push today. Got a couple hours of work done. Was feeling it piling up, and was like weirdly not feeling well Thursday evening. So I ended up staying home and working from home Friday. And all that being said, one thing that comes to mind is our old business is being sued right now. So that's a fun update that I've been thinking of talking about for a while. But basically, we had a client around the time that we were closing down our business. It's kind of funny. I've thought about, oh, maybe I shouldn't share this publicly, but the 35 people that follow me on YouTube right now, I don't think any of you guys are going to tell, or it's not like this is going to get back to the person we're disputing with, but it was right around the time we were closing down our business. And of course, as it goes, it's never a clean break when you're having to discontinue service and kind of sort all that out. And so this particular project, we were mid-project, so we had completed a portion of the scope of work, and so we returned. We had received a deposit initially to begin work, and only completed a portion of the work. So we returned the portion of the deposit for the work that we did not do, but we retained the amount of the deposit of the work that we did do. And I think where the real mistake was, the real learning lesson was, we kind of, at a certain point, it put this client in a bit of a hard position when you're trying to put a unit back together, and the service that you were depending on goes out of, closes their doors. You now have to find new service providers, and it's kind of a labor intensive process. And so what we should have done, or what I should have done, was taken control of the situation and found them other service providers and stayed in the situation long enough to where there was a clean handoff to where they felt like they were getting taken care of. Well, we did not do that. And so we said, hey, we've completed this work. We haven't completed this. Here's your deposit back. Here's the notice of terminating the agreement that we had. We're moving on. We're closing our business. Our team they're all finding new jobs. We've sold all our equipment, all our tools. We can no longer really be of service to you. So, and throughout that, it wasn't necessarily rocky right away, but at a certain point, this person continued to need help or have questions, and then eventually called into question some of the quality of the work. It was a cosmetic drywall repair, and so there was questions about blemishes or defects, and rather than addressing those head on and turning into the problem, I kind of just ignored it. And that was a big mistake. I kind of just, I said, hey, I don't think there's really anything else I'll be able to do. We've sold our tools. There, I have no more means to fix any cosmetic issues if there are any. And that was not the right way to handle it. I should have stayed in it. So that's the learning lesson. That's the thing I have to admit. But that's no longer really the issue at hand. The question is now kind of a legal matter, because after, I went silent, and then I no longer heard from this individual. And again, this was in the time of moving across the country, selling all of our assets, trying to get out of the lease for our business. So there was a lot that went into closing our doors. And this is one of those problems that I just kind of ignored, which was a bad call, because it's coming back to rear its head. And so months later, back in February, I get a letter from this person's lawyer. This person has enlisted the help of a lawyer, and they basically claim that we should return the amount of money that we retained for the work that we did perform. And then over and above that, we should pay a dollar amount that allegedly they had to pay to get another service provider to come in and correct that work. So not only should they not have to pay for the work to begin with, they should not have to pay for the smaller amount for the alleged service provider that came in to correct the work. So when it's all said and done, those repairs should be done for free, which is interesting. And so they're alleging that we harmed them in that way by retaining the dollar amount for the work that we performed and by not reimbursing them for the amount they paid to allegedly correct the work. And then lastly, they are alleging that they had to pay for alternative housing beyond what they had originally intended because they had to change service providers. And again, what I pointed out to the lawyer that I dealt with is that in our agreements there was no finish date, there was no end date, and that's the way that these remodel renovation projects go. By the time it takes you to select cabinets and to select a tile and this and that, those are all delays and those are all things that add to the timeline, to where on the front end we have no clearly defined, and then there was actually no even vaguely defined timeline of when we thought we would be done. So to say that us leaving prolonged that undefined timeline, it is nonsensical. Had we had an end date that we missed the target for, then it would make sense to hold us liable for that end date. I have former acquaintances in commercial construction. It's very well defined. Hey, the build is supposed to be done by this time, and each day that you go over that amount is you're being assessed basically like a fine for that. You're losing money. Because there were defined milestones, so not quite the same, most in residential remodeling, and definitely not in the case of this particular agreement and project. All that being said, they went ahead with a lawsuit anyways, and so now we have enlisted the help of our lawyer to defend us, and so that occupied a fair amount of brain space and energy towards the end of this week. And it's one of those things that it's a nuisance. It's a small problem, and it'll get sorted out. But again, it all could have been avoided had I just turned into the problem and had I just faced the problem at the time and helped resolve it and keep relationships good and soothed things over, smoothed things over, soothed their nerves, to avoid this kind of fiasco. Because at the end of the day, when you're siloed, when there's no communication, people start thinking the worst. And I know, as a married man, he's a married man, if he comes home and says that he came home with nothing, that's typically not good. And I've been in the same position where I feel like, hey, I have to get something to come home to Kate and show her, hey, I resolved this problem. I got a fix. I got something out of the situation. So funny enough, this person that, bought the home a couple years ago had already sold it after they'd sold it before they pursued legal action against us. To this full extent, they pursued legal action before they sold the house, but they went ahead and sold the house, made a fair amount of profit off the sale of the house, as far as we can tell on the public records, and now are still pursuing further legal action, which the dollar amount of the job is peanuts compared to the value of the home and how much they cleared on those transactions, which is neither here nor there. But it just goes to show this person's motivation is not monetary. It's just it's a feeling like they were slighted. And again, I felt like we handled it the right way, ethically speaking, and the actual transaction. Hey, we did this amount of work, we stopped the work, we returned what we didn't do. it felt very clean. That's what we did in many other situations, and it wasn't a problem. Just so happened that this client needed a little bit more TLC, and not providing that has now put us in the situation that we're in. So just felt like it was worth sharing and giving you guys an update on that. And again, hopefully no one who shouldn't see this gets a hold of it, i.e. like this guy's attorney or whatever. but when it's all resolved, I'd be happy to give you guys an update. And that being said, getting ready for a big week. Got lots of work to do, and I hope you're all doing the same, staying real productive out there. And I'll definitely talk to you soon, and I hope you're well. Later.